My son beat me just because the soup wasn't salted. The next morning, he ordered, "My wife's coming for lunch. Cover everything up and smile." Then he left for the office, and the moment he walked into his boss's room, he turned pale as chalk. Oh, the things we do for our children. The sacrifices, the blind love, the way we open our hearts, only to have them shatter it into a million pieces. Because, just last night, my own son, the boy I poured every ounce of my being into, hit me until I bled. Over a bowl of unsalted soup. I was left there, crumpled on the kitchen floor, wiping my own blood with an old rag. And he just calmly walked to his room, closed the door, and fell asleep as if hitting his own mother was the most normal thing in the world. This morning, I woke up with a body that screamed in protest, bruises blossoming on my arms, and a cut on my lip that still burns with every word. But trust me, the physical pain? That's nothing compared to the humiliation. It's knowing that my own flesh and blood, the one I raised with so much love, the one I gave everything to, sees me as nothing more than his personal maid. It's knowing that my sole purpose on this earth is to serve him and keep my mouth shut. I dragged myself out of bed at 5 a.m., just like every other day. Ethan was already at the kitchen table, impeccable in his gray suit, scrolling on his phone. He didn't even glance my way when I walked in. Just that flat voice, without looking up, "Breakfast. Hurry up. Important meeting." It was like the night before never happened. Like he hadn't screamed at me, called me worthless, useless, swore he'd throw me out on the street if I wasn't his mother. I prepared his scrambled eggs, exactly how he likes them, 3 spoonfuls of shredded cheese, 2 slices of toasted bread, black coffee, no sugar. Everything had to be perfect, measured to the last detail. Because if anything is even slightly off, he explodes. And when Ethan explodes, I'm the one who pays. Mid-breakfast, the front door lock clicked. It was Savannah, his wife, a young, elegant woman with a fake smile plastered on her face, who always treats me like I'm invisible. She floated in, all light green dress and high heels, kissed Ethan's cheek, and sat down like she owned the place. "Good morning, Mrs. Davis," she chirped, that sickeningly sweet voice reserved only for Ethan's presence. "How are you this morning?" Oh, how I wanted to scream. To tell her that her perfect husband had left me bruised and bleeding, that I couldn't take it anymore. But instead, I just smiled. "I'm fine, thank you. Are you having breakfast, Savannah?" Ethan's eyes shot me a warning look. One wrong word and tonight will be worse. Then, with that fake smile he puts on for an audience, he said, "Look, Mom, I bought you this new makeup. It's perfect for covering those little scrapes you got when you tripped last night." Little scrapes. That's what he called what he did. As if I'd tripped and fallen on his fist all by myself. I took the makeup without a word. An expensive foundation, probably bought with my retirement money, because he manages my entire bank account. "For your own good, Mom," he always says, "at your age, you can't handle money." The truth? I haven't seen a single penny of my pension in 2 years. Savannah was gazing at him, eyes shining with admiration. "You're so thoughtful, honey. Always taking care of your mom." If only she knew. If only she knew her successful executive husband, the one handling million-dollar accounts, comes home every night to take out his frustrations on me. After breakfast, Ethan put on his red tie, grabbed his briefcase, and leaned in to whisper in my ear while Savannah was touching up her makeup. "Remember what we talked about? If you ever open your mouth, if you tell anyone what happens here, you're going to regret it. No one will believe you. You're just a crazy old woman living off her son's charity." His words sent a chill straight to my bones. They left together, holding hands, the perfect couple they pretended to be. I watched them from the window as they got into his new black sedan, a $400,000 car. My money. All of it. When the house finally fell silent, I collapsed in the kitchen and cried. Not tears of sadness, but of pure rage, of utter helplessness. Because I knew I had to do something, but I had no idea what. I couldn't keep living like this, but how do you escape a nightmare you invited into your own home? I sat in that silent kitchen for hours, watching the sunlight creep across the floor. This house used to be my sanctuary. I bought it 30 years ago with the money I saved from 40 years as an executive secretary at Sullivan and Associates. 40 years of getting up at 5 a.m., always on time, organizing other people's lives. I never imagined I'd end up a prisoner in my own home. It all started 3 years ago. Ethan divorced his first wife and showed up at my door with a suitcase, that lost boy look he always used to melt my heart. "Mom, I need to stay here for a while, just until I sort out my financial situation." He said the divorce had left him bankrupt, homeless. And me, the foolish mother I've always been, I opened my door and my heart. "Of course, son, this is your home too." How utterly naive. I didn't know I was inviting the devil to live with me. The first few months were normal. He went to work, we ate dinner, he even helped with groceries. I thought we were finally getting the mother-son relationship I'd always dreamed of. But slowly, subtly, things began to change. First, the small comments. Mom, this food is too salty. Mom, why don't you clean the bathroom better? Mom, your clothes are too wrinkled. It's embarrassing. They hurt, but I justified them. He was just stressed from the divorce. Then he started on my finances. Mom, at your age, you shouldn't be handling so much cash. It's dangerous. Let me help with your accounts. And like an idiot, I gave him access. He's my son, I thought. He would never hurt me. How wrong I was. In 6 months, Ethan had completely taken over my money. My monthly $1,200 pension went straight to his account. He gave me $20 a week for personal expenses, like I was a child with an allowance. When I asked about the rest, he'd say, Mom, I'm investing your savings to help them grow. Trust me. Then Savannah came along. 25 years younger than him, perfect smile, ambition. You could spot a mile away. He met her at his office. 6 months later, they married in a ceremony that cost over $100,000. My money, of course. Since Savannah, everything got worse. Ethan started treating me like a housemaid. Mom, make dinner for Savannah and me. Something elegant. She's used to fine things. Mom, clean the guest bathroom. Important people are coming over. Mom, wash this shirt by hand. It's too expensive for the machine. And I always obeyed. I obeyed because I was terrified of his anger. Terrified he'd follow through on his threat to kick me out of my own house. Because, even though the house was legally mine, Ethan convinced me to put his name on the deed, too, just in case something happens to you, Mom. The physical violence started a year ago. First, accidental pushes. Then pinches on my arm when I didn't do something exactly as he wanted. You're driving me crazy, Mom. You're too slow. Then it escalated. Hits on the shoulder, slaps when the food wasn't his liking, punches to my back if I wasn't cleaning fast enough. But last night was different. He crossed a line I never thought he would. I'd made vegetable soup for dinner. Tuesday light meal. I carefully set the table, served the soup and toasted bread. Everything perfect. Ethan came home, tired from the office, sat down without a greeting, took a spoonful, and his face twisted. What the hell is this? He yelled, spitting the soup back into the bowl. It has no salt. It's as bland as water. I immediately apologized. I'm sorry, son. I forgot. Let me add some. But it was too late. Ethan launched from the table like a wild animal, grabbed the bowl and threw it in my face. The hot liquid burned my cheek. Pieces of porcelain cut my lip. You're useless, he screamed, grabbing my arm so hard I knew it would bruise. 40 years as a secretary, and you can't even make a decent soup. You're pathetic. He shoved me against the kitchen wall. My head hit the tile and I saw stars. But he didn't stop. He slapped me so hard my ear buzzed for hours. Then another and another. Savannah is bringing her friends over for lunch tomorrow. He seethed while I covered my face with my hands. I want you to prepare something special, and you'd better make sure it's perfect. Because if you make me look bad, if you show even one sign of how pathetic you are, I swear to God I'll kick you out of this house. Then, as always after he hit me, he calmed down. He bent down, helped me up, and wiped the blood from my lip with a napkin. I'm sorry, Mom, he said in a soft voice. I just get so frustrated seeing you like this. I know you can do better. It's all for your own good, so you'll learn. And he went to sleep peacefully as if nothing had happened. I stayed awake all night in that kitchen, cleaning up the remains of the soup and the broken porcelain. Every little piece I picked up felt like I was picking up the fragments of my own dignity. My lip was still bleeding, but it wasn't just physical pain anymore. It was something deeper, something darker. It was the crushing realization that my own son, the person I loved most in this world, had become my tormentor. As I cleaned, I remembered. Ethan wasn't always like this. As a boy, he was sweet, affectionate. His father left us when he was 8, and from then on, it was just him and me against the world. I worked double shifts for years to give him everything. The best private school, designer clothes, piano lessons, English lessons, anything he asked for. Maybe that was my mistake. Maybe I spoiled him so much he never learned the value of respect, of effort, of real love. I always gave him everything on a silver platter, asking nothing in return. And now, 35 years later, I was paying the price. At dawn, I heard his footsteps coming down the stairs. My heart instantly started racing, as it always does when he's near. It's incredible, living in a constant state of alert in your own home. He came into the kitchen, already in his black suit, checking his phone. This time, he didn't even ask for breakfast. He just sat and waited for me to serve it. I prepared his scrambled eggs, his black coffee, his 2 slices of toast, all in absolute silence. He ate, answering emails as if I were invisible. At 7:30, Savannah arrived, radiant in a tight yellow dress, her high heels clicking like hammer blows on the floor. Good morning, Mrs. Davis, she said with that plastic smile. How are you feeling today? Fine, thank you, I lied, as always. Just a coffee, please, she said, a light one with artificial sweetener. As I served it, I noticed her observing me out of the corner of her eye. Her gaze lingered on my swollen lip, on the bruise peeking out from my blouse. For a fleeting moment, I thought she might say something, ask what happened. But no, she simply looked away and went back to her phone. Ethan finished his breakfast and looked at me intently. Remember what I told you last night, Mom? Savannah is bringing 3 friends for lunch. Seafood pasta, Caesar salad, desserts, and buy some good white wine, not that cheap garbage. He handed me 3 $20 bills as if it were an act of great generosity. $60 to prepare an elaborate lunch for 5 when he spends more than that on a single shirt. And one more thing, he added, leaning in to whisper while Savannah wasn't looking, put on that makeup I bought you. Cover those marks well. If any of her friends ask anything strange, if they make any comment about your appearance, you're going to regret it. Do you understand me? I nodded, my hands trembling slightly. He smiled, kissed my forehead like the perfect son he pretended to be, and they left together. As soon as the door closed, I collapsed into a kitchen chair. $60 for an elaborate lunch. Fresh seafood alone costs at least $30 a pound. The good wine, another $20. How was I supposed to work miracles with so little money? But it wasn't just the money. It was the pressure of having to act normal in front of Savannah's friends, of pretending to be the happy mother-in-law of a perfect family, when in reality, I was an abused woman trapped in my own home. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror and hardly recognized the reflection. My lip was swollen and purple, a small cut at the corner of my mouth. My eyes were red and puffy from crying. The bruise on my neck looked like a dark stain spreading towards my collarbone. I opened the makeup Ethan had given me, an expensive imported foundation, the kind elegant women like Savannah use. I started applying it carefully, covering every mark, every bruise, every piece of evidence of what really happens in this house. As I put on my makeup, I couldn't help but think about all the times I had done this before. How many mornings I had woken up to hide bruises, to invent excuses about falls and accidents. I tripped on the table. The closet door slipped out of my hand. I fell down the stairs, one lie after another to protect my son's reputation. I went out to do the shopping, list in hand, my face perfectly made up. At the supermarket, I tried to stretch those $60 as far as I could. Frozen shrimp instead of fresh prawns, the cheapest brand of wine that wasn't terrible, pasta on sale. Every single penny counted. As I waited in line, an older woman approached me. It was Clarice, my next-door neighbor, a kind widow in her 60s. "Hello, Monica," she said with a warm smile. "How are you doing, dear? Haven't seen you in the yard lately." "Hello, Clarice," I replied. "I'm fine, thanks. Just been busy around the house." She looked at me intently, her eyes lingering on my lip despite the makeup. "Did you hurt your mouth?" she asked with genuine concern. My heart started to race. "No, it's nothing," I lied. "I just bumped into the closet door last night. You know how clumsy I am." Clarice frowned but didn't push it. "Well, if you ever need anything, you know where I live. I'm always home in the afternoons." Her words went straight to my heart. It had been so long since anyone had offered me genuine help, since anyone had treated me with true kindness. For a moment, I wanted to tell her everything, to beg for her help, to confess the nightmare I was living. But Ethan's voice echoed in my head. "If you ever open your mouth, no one will believe you. You're just a crazy old woman." "Thank you, Clarice," I said simply. "You're very kind." I went back inside and started cooking like a madwoman. Everything had to be ready by noon. I cleaned the house top to bottom, set the table with the good china, arranged flowers. Everything perfect. While I cooked, Clarice's words kept circling in my mind. "If you ever need anything, you know where I live." Did she suspect something? Had she heard the screaming that sometimes came from my house at night? At 11:30, my phone rang. An unrecognized number. "Mrs. Davis," a man's voice asked. "Yes, this is she. This is the accountant from your son, Ethan's company. We need to speak with you urgently about some discrepancies in the accounts. Could you come to the office this afternoon?" My heart stopped. "Discrepancies? I don't understand." "I'd rather not discuss this over the phone, Mrs. Davis. Can you come at 3 this afternoon? It's very important." I hung up, my hands trembling. What could Ethan have done at work? Why were they calling me? A cold dread settled in my stomach, but I had no time to dwell on it. Savannah and her friends were already arriving. The doorbell rang at exactly 12 o'clock. I took a deep breath, touched up my makeup one last time, and opened the door. There was Savannah with her 3 friends, all dressed as if for a fashion show. Expensive dresses, designer purses, shoes that cost more than my monthly pension. "Hello, Mrs. Davis," Savannah trilled, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Let me introduce you to my friends. This is Beatrice, she works in human resources. This is Brenda from marketing, and this is Evelyn from legal." My heart nearly stopped when I heard Evelyn's name. It couldn't be a coincidence. I looked at her closely, and sure enough, it was her, Evelyn Brooks, my younger sister, whom I hadn't seen in over 2 years. Evelyn looked at me with the same surprise, but we both played it cool. She's always been smarter than me, more cunning. She immediately understood something strange was going on, especially seeing my made-up face and my nervous demeanor. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Davis," she said formally, as if she didn't know me. "Your daughter-in-law has told us so much about you." I invited them into the dining room where I'd put out my best tablecloth, the china I inherited from my mother, the crystal glasses I only used for special occasions. Everything looked elegant, just as Ethan had demanded. I served lunch, trying to keep my body steady. The shrimp pasta had turned out well despite the limited budget. The Caesar salad looked fresh. The bread was warm. I even managed a simple tiramisu for dessert. The women ate and talked about work, their lives, their weekend plans. I moved back and forth from the kitchen, serving more wine, clearing plates, the perfect hostess I was supposed to be. But Evelyn's eyes never left me. I knew that look. It was the same one she used when we were kids, and she knew I was hiding something. Throughout the meal, she observed me discreetly, studying my every move. "The food is delicious," Beatrice commented. "Did you cook all of this yourself, Mrs. Davis?" "Yes, I love to cook," I replied with a forced smile. "It's a pleasure when it's for such lovely people as yourselves." "How lucky Ethan is to have such a dedicated mother-in-law," Brenda added. "It's hard to find women so devoted to the home these days." Savannah smiled proudly. "It's true. Mrs. Davis always takes care of everything. It's like having a housekeeper, but better because she does it with love." Her words stung me like daggers. But I kept my smile. A housekeeper. That's what she thought of me. Not a mother, not a person with rights and dignity, but a free servant. Evelyn cleared her throat. "And what did you do before, Mrs. Davis? Were you always a homemaker?" I paused, feeling a little spark of pride for the first time in a long time. "I worked for 40 years as an executive secretary at the law firm of Sullivan and Associates. I retired 3 years ago." Evelyn's eyes lit up. Sullivan and Associates was one of the most prestigious firms in the city, where she'd interned during law school. "How interesting," she exclaimed. "I know that firm. They have a very good reputation. You must have met a lot of important people in all those years." "I did," I said with a more genuine smile. "I met judges, prosecutors, important lawyers. I even helped with some big cases. Mr. Sullivan always said I was indispensable." Savannah looked distinctly uncomfortable. She didn't like me being the center of attention or my professional accomplishments being discussed. She quickly changed the subject. "Well, but now Mrs. Davis is retired and enjoying her well-deserved rest," she said with that fake smile. "Ethan takes care of everything. Her finances, her needs. He's such a responsible son." Evelyn looked at me intently when Savannah said that. I know my sister, and I know those words sounded strange to her. A woman who worked 40 years at an important law firm doesn't need her son to handle her finances. The lunch continued with trivial conversation, but I could feel the tension growing. Evelyn kept watching me, and I knew she'd noticed something was off. When I went to the kitchen for dessert, she followed me. "Do you need any help?" she asked, but I knew she was looking for a moment alone. "No thanks. Everything's under control," I replied, avoiding her gaze. "Monica," she said in a low voice, using my real name for the first time that afternoon. "Are you okay? You seem different." For a moment, all my defenses crumbled. I wanted to hug her, tell her everything, beg her for help. But at that exact moment, I heard Ethan's keys in the front door. He was home from work earlier than usual. "Everything's fine, Evelyn," I said quickly. "I'm just a little tired." Ethan strode into the dining room with that perfect smile he puts on for visitors. He greeted the women elegantly, kissed Savannah's cheek, and looked at me with approval. The lunch had gone well, just as he had ordered. "How are the most beautiful ladies from the office doing?" he said with that fake charisma he uses in public. "I hope my mother took good care of you." "Excellently," Beatrice replied. "Your mother is charming." Ethan put his hand on my shoulder, and I tensed automatically. He felt my reaction and squeezed a little harder. A silent warning. "She's the best mother in the world," he said, but his fingers were digging into my shoulder through my blouse. Always looking out for everyone, always sacrificing herself for the family. The women started saying their goodbyes after dessert. Evelyn was the last to leave. Before she went out the door, she took my hand. "It was a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Davis," she said in a loud voice for Ethan to hear. But then she whispered in my ear, "We'll see each other soon." When they were all gone, Ethan closed the door, and his expression changed completely. The mask of the perfect son vanished, and he was the monster again. "You did well," he said coldly. "For once, you didn't embarrass me." It wasn't a compliment. It was a confirmation that I had fulfilled my duties as a servant. While I was picking up the dishes, he went to his room to change. But before he left, he reminded me, "By the way, the technician is coming tomorrow to check your computer. He says you've been browsing some strange websites." My blood ran cold. I didn't have my own computer. I only used his when I needed to, and the only strange things I'd looked up lately were websites about domestic abuse, shelters for battered women, and helplines. He knew. He knew I was looking for help. Just then, my phone rang. It was the accountant from Ethan's company again. Mrs. Davis, can you come in at 3 this afternoon? It's urgent. I looked at the clock. It was 2:15. Ethan was in his room, probably taking a nap. This was my chance. Yes, I said in a low voice. I'll be there. I grabbed my keys, my purse, and quietly left the house. I didn't know what was waiting for me at that office, but I had a feeling my life was about to change forever. As I walked toward the bus stop, I remembered Evelyn's words, "We'll see each other soon." My sister had noticed something, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a small spark of hope. The office building where Ethan worked was one of those modern downtown skyscrapers, all glass and steel, that commanded respect. I had never been there. For all these years, my son had kept his work life completely separate, like a secret I shouldn't know. I went up to the 18th floor to the Northern Business Corporation offices. The receptionist, a young woman with a professional smile, directed me to the accountant's office. My heart was pounding so fast I thought everyone would hear it. Mrs. Davis, a man in his 50s with glasses and a formal suit, greeted me. I'm Adrian Castillo, the general accountant for the company. Thank you for coming so quickly. I sat in front of his desk, trying to seem calm, though I was trembling inside. His eyes held a seriousness that made me even more nervous. Ma'am, I need to ask you some questions about your bank account, he began, opening a folder full of documents, specifically about some movements we've detected in the last few months. I don't understand, I said with a trembling voice. What does my account have to do with the company? Adrian looked at me with a mix of pity and concern. Mrs. Davis, we have discovered that your son, Ethan, has been using company funds to make transfers to your personal bank account. Transfers that are then withdrawn from your account. I felt as if I'd been hit in the stomach. That can't be true. Ethan is an exemplary employee. He would never do something like that. I'm afraid he has, Adrian said, showing me a series of documents. In the last 6 months, he has diverted more than $50,000 of corporate funds. The money first appears in his personal account, but immediately after, it's transferred to the account he shares with you. My world collapsed. $50,000. My son wasn't just physically abusing me. He was using me as an unwitting accomplice in his thefts. But I didn't know anything. I said desperately. He manages my entire bank account. I don't authorize any transfers. We know, Adrian said gently. That's why I called you before proceeding legally. We need you to file a formal complaint for the misuse of your bank account. It's the only way to clear your name in this matter. I felt nauseous. Not only was I a victim of domestic violence, but now I was also a victim of financial fraud. And worst of all, my own son had turned me into his accomplice without my knowing. What will happen to Ethan? I asked, though I already knew the answer. If you file the complaint, he will be arrested for corporate fund embezzlement and fraudulent use of bank accounts. These are serious crimes that can lead to between 5 and 10 years in prison. I left that office in a state of total shock. I walked the downtown streets for hours with no direction, trying to process all the information. My son was a thief, a criminal, and I had been his tool without my knowing it. When I finally got home, it was 6 o'clock in the evening. Ethan was in the living room. He looked at me with that expression of superiority. Where have you been? He asked in an accusatory tone. I got home from work and you weren't here. The house was a mess after lunch. For the first time in years, I looked him directly in the eyes without lowering my gaze. I was at your office. His expression changed immediately. The mask of control cracked for a second, and I could see the fear in his eyes. What did you say? I was at your office, Ethan. I spoke with the accountant. I know what you've been doing. He got up from the couch slowly, like a predator preparing to attack. I don't know what you're talking about, Mom. I think you're confused. $50,000? I said, feeling my voice grow firmer. $50,000 you've stolen from your company using my bank account. Ethan approached me, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't back away. Something had shifted inside me that afternoon. Maybe it was knowing that I wasn't alone, that there were other people who knew the truth. Listen to me, you stupid old woman, he said in a low, threatening voice. You have no idea what you're saying. That money is mine by right. You owe me for everything I've invested in you over these years. The food you eat, the roof over your head, the clothes you wear. With my own money, I replied. My pension, my savings, the money I earned working for 40 years. He grabbed my arm. But this time, I didn't stay quiet. Let go of me. I screamed with all the strength I had. He was so surprised by my reaction that he actually let go. For 3 years, I had been his silent victim. And now, for the first time, I was screaming at him. You're crazy, he said, but his voice didn't sound so confident anymore. No one will believe you. You're a senile old woman who doesn't even know what she's saying. The accountant believed me, I told him. The documents speak for themselves. The transfers are registered. Everything is documented. Ethan was silent for a few seconds, processing the information. Then his expression hardened even more. If you open your mouth, if you file any kind of complaint, I swear I'll destroy you. He threatened me. This house is also in my name. I can kick you out on the street tomorrow, and without my help, without my money, you'll die alone like a dog. But for the first time, his threats didn't terrify me. There was something different in me, a strength I didn't know I had. I'm not afraid of you anymore, Ethan, I told him. And as I said it, I realized it was true. For the first time in 3 years, I wasn't afraid of him. He raised his hand to hit me. But just at that moment, the doorbell rang. It was Clarice, my neighbor. Monica, she was yelling from outside. Monica, is everything all right? I heard screaming. Ethan slowly lowered his hand. He couldn't hit me with a witness nearby. His reputation was too important to him. Go see what she wants, he said through gritted teeth. And you'd better not say anything strange. I went to open the door, my legs trembling. Clarice was there with a worried expression, holding a casserole dish. Hello, dear, she said. I brought you some stew I made, but I heard loud voices and got worried. Over her shoulder, I saw there was another woman with her. It was Evelyn, my sister. She had on casual clothes, her hair tied back, but I recognized her immediately. Hello, Evelyn said, pretending she didn't know me. I'm new to the neighborhood and was just visiting Mrs. Davis. I hope we're not bothering you. Ethan appeared behind me, his fake smile perfectly in place. No problem at all, ladies. My mother was a little worked up because she burned the dinner. You know how older women get about these things. Clarice looked at him with an expression I couldn't decipher. Right, she said. Well, Monica, here's the food, and remember, if you need anything at all, I'm right next door. Evelyn looked me straight in the eyes. Yes, Mrs. Davis. Anything you need, day or night. When they left, Ethan slammed the door shut. Damn nosy old women, he muttered. But this isn't over. Tomorrow, we're going to the bank together, and you're going to sign all the papers I tell you to. You're going to retract the complaint you probably already filed, and you're going to say it was all a big misunderstanding. No, I said simply. What do you mean no? I'm not going to sign anything. I'm not going to retract any complaint, and I'm not going to be an accomplice in your thefts anymore. Ethan looked at me with a rage I had never seen before. It was as if he had finally taken off all his masks and was showing me his true nature. Fine, he said with a calm that scared me more than his shouting. If that's how you want to play, we'll play. But I'm warning you. When I'm done with you, you're going to wish you were never born. I didn't sleep at all that night. Ethan was locked in his room, but I could hear him talking on the phone for hours. I didn't know what he was planning, but I knew I had to be prepared for the worst. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I heard a strange noise in the yard. I peeked out the window and saw a figure moving among the bushes. It was Clarice, and she seemed to be setting something up near my window. The next day, I realized what she had done. She had placed a small security camera, hidden among the plants, pointed at my house. My neighbor knew something bad was happening and was documenting everything. The next day dawned gray and rainy, as if the weather was reflecting the storm brewing in my life. Ethan got up earlier than usual, at 5 a.m. I heard him moving around the house, talking on the phone in a low voice, preparing something that had me on edge. When I went down to the kitchen, he was already dressed in his best suit, the black one he wore for the most important meetings. His hair was perfectly combed, his tie impeccable. He looked like the successful executive everyone believed he was, not the monster living under my roof. Good morning, Mom, he said to me in a voice that was strangely sweet, almost sing-song. I hope you slept well. That sweetness gave me goosebumps. I knew my son well enough to know that when he was acting nice, it was because he was planning something terrible. Yes, I lied, serving him his coffee as I did every day. Good, he said, smiling in a way that didn't reach his eyes. Because today is going to be a very special day. I've been thinking about our conversation from yesterday all night. He sat at the table and began to eat breakfast calmly, as if we were a normal family. But there was something about his attitude that kept me on high alert. I've decided that you're right, he continued, as he spread butter on his toast. Maybe I've been too hard on you. After all, you're my mother and you deserve respect. His words completely confused me. Ethan, admitting he had been wrong, asking for forgiveness? It was so out of character that I immediately knew it was a trap. That's why, he continued, we're going to go to the bank together today. We're going to clear up this whole misunderstanding with my company. You're going to explain that you authorized all the transfers, that you knew exactly what was happening with your money. There it was. The real reason for his fake kindness. I'm not going to do that, Ethan, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. His smile slowly faded. Of course you are, Mom. Because if you don't, some very unpleasant things are going to happen. Are you threatening me? No, Mom, he said, finishing his coffee. I'm explaining reality to you. Look around you. This house, this table you have breakfast at, the bed you sleep in, the food you eat. All of this is possible because I allow it. And if I don't allow it anymore, He left the sentence hanging in the air, but the message was clear. He was going to leave me on the street if I didn't obey. Also, he added, taking out his phone, I've been thinking about calling some doctors. You know, doctors who specialize in older people with mental problems, like senile dementia. It's very sad when mothers start making up stories, accusing their own sons of terrible things. I felt my blood run cold. Not only was he threatening to kick me out, but to have me declared insane, incompetent, so that no one would believe my testimony. There are several witnesses who can confirm your deteriorated mental state, he continued with that cold, calculating voice. Savannah, for example, I just told her yesterday how confused you've been lately. The friends who came to lunch also noticed something strange about you. It was a lie, but he was so convincing that for a moment I doubted my own sanity. That's how his manipulation worked. He made me doubt everything, even my own perception of reality. So, we're going to the bank at 10 o'clock, he said, getting up from the table. You're going to put on your best dress. You're going to get all fixed up, and you're going to smile while you sign all the papers they put in front of you. Understand? I didn't answer him. I just started collecting the breakfast dishes, trying to buy myself some time to think. I'm talking to you, he shouted, and all trace of his fake kindness disappeared. Understood. Understood, I mumbled, hating myself for being such a coward. Ethan went to his office, but before he left, he warned me, don't even think about leaving this house. Don't even think about talking on the phone with anyone. I'll be back at 9:30 to take you to the bank. As soon as the door closed, I collapsed into a kitchen chair and started to cry. Not tears of sadness, but of pure rage. Rage against him, but most of all, rage against myself for letting things get to this point. I stayed that way for a few minutes until I heard a soft knock at the back door. It was Clarice, with an urgent look on her face. Monica, open up fast, she whispered through the glass. It's important. I opened the door, and she quickly came in, looking all around to make sure we were alone. I heard everything she told me without preamble. I have the camera set up near your kitchen window. I recorded your whole conversation with your son. My heart started to beat faster. Everything, she said. The threats, the blackmail, the way he talked to you. I have evidence that he's forcing you to lie about the stolen money. For the first time in days, I felt a spark of hope. What can we do with that? Clarice smiled. I have a friend who works at the DA's office. Her name is Brenda, and she specializes in domestic abuse and financial fraud cases. But I need you to come with me right now. I can't, I said, feeling fear take over again. Ethan told me not to leave the house. If he finds out, Monica, Clarice said, taking my hands. Listen to me closely. If you go to that bank today and you sign those papers, your son will be free of all charges. He'll keep stealing money and he'll keep abusing you. But on top of that, you'll be considered a willing accomplice in his thefts. She was right. If I signed those papers, not only would I lose my dignity, but I would also become a criminal in the eyes of the law. But if I don't go, I said with a trembling voice, he'll follow through on his threats. He'll kick me out of the house. He'll say I'm crazy. He won't be able to do any of that, Clarice interrupted me, because we're going to present the evidence before he can act. Brenda told me that with the recordings I have, they can arrest him immediately. I looked at the clock. It was 8:30. Ethan would be back in an hour. Are you sure your friend can help me? Completely sure. But we have to go now, Monica. It's our only chance. I made a decision that would change my life forever. I went in my room, grabbed my purse with my most important documents, and left that house with Clarice. As we walked to her car, I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years, courage. For the first time, I was taking control of my own life. The district attorney's office was a typical government building, long corridors and small offices. Brenda turned out to be a woman in her 40s with an intelligent gaze and a way of speaking that inspired confidence. Mrs. Davis, she said after reviewing the recordings Clarice had brought, what your son is doing constitutes multiple crimes, domestic abuse, financial fraud, blackmail, and attempted obstruction of justice. What does that mean? I asked. It means we can arrest him today, Brenda replied. But I need you to file a formal complaint for all these crimes. Are you willing to do that? I looked at the clock. It was 9:15. In 15 minutes, Ethan would be arriving home to take me to the bank. When he realized I wasn't there, his rage would be uncontrollable. Yes, I said, feeling my voice grow firmer. I'm ready to file the complaint. Brenda smiled. Perfect. While you fill out the papers, I'll coordinate with the police to have them go and arrest your son. Do you know where he is right now? He should be arriving at my house, I said. He said he'd pick me up at 9:30. Even better, Brenda said, grabbing her phone. It's easier to arrest him at a known location. While I was filling out the complaint forms, Brenda coordinated with the police. Clarice stayed with me the whole time, holding my hand, giving me strength. Are you sure about this, Monica? She asked me. Once we sign these papers, there's no turning back. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I replied. At 10:30, Brenda's phone rang. It was the police, confirming they had arrested Ethan at my house. They found him screaming like a madman, breaking things and looking for me all over the house. He's in custody, Brenda told me. The charges are serious. It's very likely he won't be able to get bail. I felt as if a 1,000-pound weight had been lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in 3 years, I knew I was going to sleep without fear. When we got back to my house that afternoon, the place looked like a battlefield. Ethan had destroyed practically everything in his path before the police arrested him. The couch cushions were torn. There were broken dishes all over the kitchen floor, and the family photos that hung on the walls were in pieces. My God, Clarice whispered, looking at the destruction. How could he do all this in such a short time? I knew the answer. I knew the blind fury of Ethan when things didn't go his way. I had seen that rage before, but never directed at inanimate objects. Usually, I was the target of his anger. Brenda, who had come with us to document the damage, was taking photos of everything. This will serve as additional evidence of his violent behavior, she explained. Destruction of property during an episode of rage. The judge will see exactly what kind of person your son is. While we were cleaning up the broken glass and picking up the pieces of my former life, my phone started ringing insistently. It was an unknown number. Don't answer it, Brenda warned me. It's probably him calling from jail. Let it go to voicemail. Indeed, when I checked the messages, it was Ethan's voice, but it sounded completely different. It was no longer the threatening monster from the morning. It was the scared child he pretended to be when he wanted to manipulate me. Mom, his voice said, breaking in the recording. Mom, please come get me out of here. It was all a misunderstanding. I never meant to hurt you. You know I love you. You're the most important thing in my life. Please, Mom, don't let me rot in this jail. I'm your son. Your only son. He had left 5 similar messages, each one more desperate than the last. In the last one, he was even crying. It's part of his manipulation strategy, Brenda explained to me. First, violence and threats. Now, victimhood and guilt. It's a typical pattern in abusers. Even though I rationally understood what was happening, hearing my son cry broke my heart. For 35 years, he had been my baby, my reason for living. It was hard to separate the monster he had become from the boy he once was. Are you okay? Clarice asked, noticing my expression. It's complicated, I admitted. I know I did the right thing, but he's still my son. That night, Clarice insisted that I stay at her house. Your house isn't safe right now, she told me. Ethan has friends, and maybe even Savannah. Someone might come looking for revenge. She was right. In the voicemails, Ethan had mentioned that Savannah was handling things from the outside. I didn't know exactly what that meant, but I was afraid to find out. Clarice's house was small but cozy. It had a guest room with a twin bed and a small desk. It was my daughter's room before she got married, she explained. Now it's yours for as long as you need it. For the first time in 3 years, I went to bed without fear. I didn't have to worry about Ethan's footsteps in the hallway, his late-night screaming, or waking up to punches. It was a strange, almost unsettling feeling. Peace can also be scary when you're not used to it. The next day, Brenda called me early with news. Ethan's bail hearing is today at 2 in the afternoon, she informed me. The judge will decide if he can be released from jail while he waits for his trial. What are the chances he'll be released? I asked, feeling fear return. With the evidence we have, very slim, but I need you to come and testify at the hearing. Your testimony will be crucial for the judge to understand the danger he poses. The hearing was in a small courtroom. Ethan was sitting at the defense table, wearing an orange jumpsuit. When he saw me come in, his expression changed completely. He was no longer the repentant child from the voicemails. He was pure, contained rage. Savannah was sitting in the public benches, elegantly dressed as always, but she looked haggard, as if she hadn't slept in days. When our eyes met, I saw something in her eyes that surprised me: shame. The judge was an older man in his 60s, with a serious but fair look. He reviewed all the documents before beginning. Mrs. Davis, he said to me when it was my turn to testify, tell me in your own words what you have been living through in your home for the last few years. I took a deep breath and began to speak. I told them about the beatings, about the control over my money, about the threats, about the constant humiliation. My voice broke at times, but I kept talking. When I mentioned the $50,000 he stole, I saw Ethan tense up in his seat. His lawyer, a young man in an expensive suit, tried to object constantly, but the judge silenced him. And what did your son tell you yesterday morning regarding your testimony? The judge asked. He threatened to have me declared mentally incompetent if I didn't lie for him. He told me he would kick me out on the street and that I would be left with nothing. The judge reviewed the recordings Clarice had made. He listened to them in their entirety with headphones while the whole courtroom waited in silence. Mr. Ethan Davis, the judge said when he was done, the evidence presented shows a clear pattern of domestic abuse, financial fraud, and witness intimidation. Considering the seriousness of the charges and the risk you pose to the victim, your request for bail is denied. You will remain in custody until the date of your trial. Ethan exploded. This is an injustice, he shouted, standing up. That crazy old woman is making everything up. I'm a respectable citizen. I have rights. The guards had to hold him. As he continued to scream, "You're going to regret this, Mom. When I get out of here, I'm going to make you pay for every day I spend in this jail." His threats echoed throughout the courtroom, confirming exactly what I had testified about his violent character. After the hearing, Savannah approached me in the courthouse hallway. "Mrs. Davis," she said in a trembling voice, "I need to talk to you." Brenda and Clarice tensed up, but I signaled to them that I was okay. "What do you want, Savannah?" I asked her. "I want to apologize," she said. And for the first time since I had known her, her voice sounded genuine. "I knew something wasn't right in that house. I heard screaming. I saw your bruises. I noticed how you flinched every time he raised his voice. Then why didn't you ever say anything?" I asked. "Because I was scared," she admitted. "Ethan had threatened me too. He told me that if I ever betrayed him, he would destroy my career, my reputation, and I was a coward. I let you suffer alone because I was afraid of losing my comfortable life." Her eyes filled with tears. "When they arrested him yesterday, I found documents in his home office. He hadn't just been stealing money from his company. He had also been stealing from my personal account. We've been married for 2 years, and I never realized he was a fraudster." "What are you going to do now?" I asked her. "I'm going to file for divorce immediately," she said with determination, "and I'm going to testify against him at his trial. I've already spoken with a lawyer. I want to collaborate with the DA's office to make him pay for everything he did to us." When we left the courthouse, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Genuine hope. Not only had I managed to escape from my son, but now I had allies in my fight for justice. That afternoon, as we walked back to Clarice's house, Brenda gave me more good news. "The company where Ethan worked wants to reach an agreement," she informed me. "They're willing to not press additional charges against you if you cooperate by returning the stolen money. Also, as an acknowledgement that you were a victim of fraud, they're going to pay you a compensation of $20,000. It was more money than I had had available in the last 3 years. "What about my house?" I asked. "Ethan said it was in his name, too." "We checked the documents," Brenda said, smiling. "Your son lied. The deed is still only in your name. He forged some papers, but legally, the house is completely yours." For the first time in a long time, I started to see a possible future. A future where I could live without fear, where I could make my own decisions, where I could be the owner of my own life. But I also knew that Ethan wasn't going to give up easily. His threats at the hearing had been clear. This war was just beginning. 3 weeks after Ethan's arrest, my life had completely changed, but not in the way I expected. Although I was physically safe at Clarice's house, psychologically, I was still his prisoner. I had developed a constant paranoia that kept me awake most nights. Every noise made me jump. Every car that stopped in front of the house made me run to the window. Every unknown phone call gave me a panic attack. Brenda had explained that it was normal. After years of abuse, the fear doesn't disappear overnight. "It's post-traumatic stress disorder," she had told me. "Your mind and body are used to living in a constant state of alert. It's going to take time to heal." But there was more than just simple trauma. Ethan had managed to get messages to me from jail. Messages that chilled me to the bone. The first one came through a different lawyer, not his official representative. It was a handwritten letter in the handwriting I knew so well. "Dear Mom," it said, "I hope you're enjoying your little victory. I hope you feel very brave for betraying me. But I want you to know something. This isn't over. I know things about you that no one else knows. Secrets you kept for 40 years working at that law firm. Things that could ruin not only your reputation, but your freedom." My heart stopped when I read those lines. What secrets? During my 40 years as a secretary at Sullivan and Associates, I had handled confidential information, of course, but I had never done anything illegal. "Remember the case of Williams versus the state, Mom? The one from 15 years ago. I found the documents you hid, the ones you altered to help Mr. Sullivan win that multi-million-dollar case. Documents that, if they come to light, could send you to prison for obstruction of justice." My hands started to tremble violently. I vaguely remembered the Williams case. It had been a difficult case where the firm represented a pharmaceutical company accused of concealing fatal side effects of a medication. Mr. Sullivan had asked me to organize some documents to remove certain memos that could hurt his client. I had thought it was normal, part of my job as a secretary. I never fully understood the legal implications of what I had done. But Ethan was right. I had technically altered evidence in a court case. "I have copies of everything, Mom. And if you don't drop the charges against me, if you don't come and publicly apologize for your lies, those documents are going to end up in the DA's hands." Imagine the headlines: 61-year-old secretary arrested for complicity in covering up drug deaths. The rest of the letter detailed exactly how he was going to destroy my life if I didn't obey. He had media contacts. He knew journalists who would pay well for a story of judicial corruption. My photo would be in all the newspapers. My name would be forever associated with a scandal. When Clarice found me crying with the letter in my hands, she immediately called Brenda. "This is clear blackmail," Brenda said after reading the letter. "But we need to know if his threats have any basis. What exactly do you remember about the Williams case?" I told her everything I remembered, including the instructions Mr. Sullivan had given me about reorganizing the documents. "Did you know that what you were doing could be illegal?" she asked me. "No," I said honestly. "I was just following orders." Mr. Sullivan told me it was normal procedure to protect client confidentiality. Brenda sighed. "Legally, ignorance is no excuse. If you really altered evidence, even if it was without criminal intent, you technically did commit a crime." My world collapsed all over again. Just when I thought I had escaped from Ethan's clutches, he found another way to control me. "What do I do?" I asked desperately. "If I drop the charges, he gets out and he'll kill me. If I don't, I go to jail for something I did 15 years ago without knowing it was illegal." "First, calm down," Brenda told me. "Second, we're going to investigate exactly what documents your son has and how he got them. And third, we're going to look for ways to minimize the legal damage if it turns out there really is evidence against you." The next few days were a legal investigation nightmare. Brenda worked with a team of lawyers specializing in old cases to review the entire Williams case file. Meanwhile, I lived in a constant state of terror, waiting for them to come and arrest me at any moment. Clarice was my salvation during those dark weeks. Not only did she give me refuge in her home, but she became the sister I never had. Every night, she would sit with me while I cried, make me chamomile tea to help me sleep, and constantly remind me that I wasn't alone. No matter what happens, she would tell me, "We're going to face it together. You're no longer that scared woman who lived under her son's terrorism." But I felt exactly like that scared woman. Ethan had achieved what he wanted. He had returned me to the state of fear and hopelessness that had been my life for 3 years. A week later, the second letter arrived. Even colder than the first. "I see you haven't learned your lesson, Mom. I see you still think you can defy me. That's fine. Now, everyone is going to find out what kind of person you really are." Along with the letter, there was an envelope with photographs of documents, indeed internal memos from the firm of Sullivan and Associates with my handwriting on them, where I had written notes in the margins, dates that had been altered, and pages that were missing from original files. "These photos are going to be in the newspaper tomorrow night if you don't come and visit me in jail before Friday. You'll come alone, without lawyers, without witnesses, and you'll bring a signed letter asking to drop all the charges against me because it was all a big misunderstanding caused by your mental deterioration." My mental deterioration. That accusation that chilled my blood all over again. "If you don't come, not only will these photos be in the newspapers, but you'll also see the recordings." "Recordings? What recordings? Did you think I didn't know you had cameras installed in the house, Mom? Did you think I was that stupid? I have recordings too. Recordings of you accepting cash from clients at the firm. Money you never reported as income, tax evasion. Mom, another 15 years in prison." This time, it wasn't just blackmail. It was all-out psychological warfare. Ethan had been preparing for this situation for months, maybe years. He had collected evidence, planned every move, and anticipated my rebellion. When Brenda read the second letter, her expression became very serious. "Monica, I need you to tell me the complete truth about your time at the firm. Anything you might have done, any irregular situation, any money you received outside of your salary." I told her about the cash Christmas bonuses that Mr. Sullivan gave me every year, money I never declared because I thought they were personal gifts. I told her about the times when grateful clients had given me cash tips for special services, money I also never reported because I didn't know I had to. In total, she asked, "How much money are we talking about over 40 years? Maybe $1,000, I said with shame. Brenda quickly calculated. With interest and penalties, we'd be looking at a tax debt of about $40,000. But the most serious thing is that it was technically tax evasion. My son had built a perfect trap. If I reported him, he would destroy me with evidence of my own mistakes. If I didn't report him, he would remain free to abuse me and steal money. There's a third option, Brenda said, after thinking for a long time. An option neither of you will expect. We get ahead of him. We voluntarily confess all your mistakes before he can use them as blackmail. And we use that confession to show that your son is a master manipulator who exerts psychological control over his victims, even from jail." It was a risky gamble. It meant publicly admitting I had committed crimes, facing possible legal consequences, and exposing myself to public humiliation. But it also meant taking away Ethan's main weapon, my secret. "If we do this," Brenda continued, "your son loses all his power over you. He can no longer blackmail you because there's nothing left to hide." I looked out the window at my house, which remained empty and shattered across the street. That house represented my past, my mistakes, my fears, but it also represented my future, my freedom, my chance to start over. "Let's do it," I finally told her. "I'm tired of living in fear. I'm tired of my son controlling my life from a jail cell. Brenda smiled. Tomorrow, we're going to give Ethan the surprise of his life. The day we decided to fight back arrived faster than I expected. Brenda had organized a press conference for 2 o'clock in the afternoon where I would voluntarily confess all my past mistakes before Ethan could use them against me. It was a risky strategy, but it was our only chance to regain control of the situation. That morning, I woke up with a mental clarity I hadn't felt in years. For the first time since Ethan's arrest, I wasn't afraid. I had made a decision that would change my life forever. And strangely, I felt at peace with it. Clarice helped me get ready. I put on my most serious gray dress, the one I used for formal occasions when I worked at the firm. I put on a little bit of makeup, just enough not to look haggard, but without trying to hide who I really was. Are you sure about this, Monica? Clarice asked me for the 5th time that morning. Once you say those words in public, there's no turning back. I'm completely sure, I replied, surprised by the firmness of my own voice. For 3 years, I lived as a prisoner in my own home out of fear of the consequences. I'm not going to remain a prisoner of my past mistakes. At noon, Brenda called me with unexpected news. Monica, something extraordinary just happened. Raphael Miller, Ethan's boss at the company, wants to talk to you before the press conference. Raphael was the man who had discovered Ethan's thefts, the same man who had turned ashen when he found out the truth. I didn't understand why he wanted to talk to me. We met in Brenda's office. Raphael was a man in his 50s with gray hair and a presence that commanded respect. When he saw me come in, he immediately rose from his seat. Mrs. Davis, he said to me in a warm but serious voice. First, I want to apologize. If I had supervised Ethan better, if I had paid attention to the red flags, maybe we could have prevented you from suffering so much. His words surprised me. You had no way of knowing what was happening in my house. Maybe not, Raphael said, sitting down in front of me. But I did have a way of knowing that something strange was going on with the company's finances. Your son's thefts didn't start 6 months ago. They started 2 years ago. My heart stopped. 2 years. 2 years, Raphael confirmed. Small amounts at first. So small that we attributed them to accounting errors. But when we started investigating after your complaint, we discovered he had been stealing systematically for a long time. Brenda leaned forward. How much money are we talking about in total? $130,000, Raphael said, which went directly to accounts he controlled, including your bank account. I felt nauseous. Not only had I been a victim of physical and psychological abuse, but I had been the unwitting tool in a massive robbery for 2 entire years. But there's more, Raphael continued. When Ethan was arrested, our legal department decided to investigate more deeply. We discovered he had been forging reports, manipulating contracts, and even selling the company's confidential information to competitors. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Raphael smiled for the first time since the conversation had started. Because we want to offer you a job, Mrs. Davis. A job. During our investigation, we reviewed your work history. 40 years at Sullivan and Associates, impeccable references, experience with complex cases. We need someone with your experience to help us rebuild everything your son destroyed. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Instead of facing arrest and public humiliation, I was being offered a chance to start over. The salary would be $4,000 a month, Raphael continued. Plus health benefits, plus a special compensation of $50,000 as recognition for the damage we unintentionally caused you. $4,000 a month was more than 3 times my current pension, and $50,000 in compensation. Suddenly, my future didn't look so hopeless. But there's one condition, Raphael added. We need you to testify at your son's trial. Your testimony will be crucial to ensuring he pays for all his crimes, not just the ones he committed against you. Of course, I said without hesitation. I'll do whatever it takes. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the press room was full of journalists, cameras, and microphones. Brenda had invited all the local media, explaining that a victim of domestic violence would be making an important statement about blackmail from jail. When I sat in front of those cameras, I felt a different fear from the one I had experienced for years. It wasn't fear of Ethan. It wasn't fear of the beatings or the threats. It was fear of freedom. Fear of the responsibility of being the owner of my own life. My name is Monica Davis, I began, looking directly into the cameras. I'm 61 years old, and for the last 3 years I have been a victim of domestic violence by my son, Ethan Davis. I told my complete story. The beatings, the financial control, the threats, the systematic theft of my money. But I also told the part that Ethan expected me to keep secret. During my 40 years working as a secretary at the law firm of Sullivan and Associates, I made mistakes, I said, feeling my voice grow firmer with each word. Mistakes that I didn't know were illegal at the time, but that I now recognize as such. I explained the Williams case, the altered documents, the unreported money, everything. I held nothing back. My son discovered these mistakes, and he has been using them to blackmail me from jail. He threatened to publicly expose me if I didn't drop the charges against him. Today, I am here to take that weapon away from him. I would rather face the consequences of my mistakes than continue to be a victim of his manipulation. The room was completely silent. The journalists were taking furious notes. The cameras were recording every word. I want to send a message to all the women who are being abused by their sons, husbands, or partners, I continued. Emotional blackmail, financial control, threats of exposure, they are all forms of abuse. Don't let the fear of public judgment keep you as a prisoner. Freedom is worth more than reputation. After the press conference, Brenda informed me that the DA's office had decided not to press charges against me for my past mistakes. Your voluntary confession, combined with the fact that you were a victim of blackmail, makes you more useful as a witness than as a defendant, she explained. That night, for the first time in months, I returned to sleep in my own house. Clarice insisted on staying with me for the first few nights until I felt completely safe. As I lay down in my own bed, in my own house, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 3 years: total control over my own life. Ethan was still in jail, facing multiple charges that would likely keep him there for many years. His blackmail had lost all its power because I no longer had any secrets to hide. My phone rang. It was a number from the jail, but this time I wasn't afraid to answer. Mom, it was Ethan's voice, but it sounded completely defeated. I saw your press conference on the news. And what do you think of it? I asked him with a calmness that surprised me. You destroyed everything, he said, but without anger, only a deep sadness. You destroyed my last chance to get out of here. No, Ethan, I replied. You destroyed that chance when you decided to turn your mother into your victim. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Are you ever going to forgive me? He finally asked. Someday, I said. Honestly, when you pay for what you did, when you seek real help to change, when you understand the damage you caused, someday I might be able to forgive you. But I'm never going to forget. I hung up the phone and turned it off. Tomorrow, I would start my new job, my new life. But that night, I just wanted to sleep peacefully in my own home, without fear, without threats, without blackmail. For the first time in 3 years, I was completely free. And although the path had been painful, although I had had to face my own mistakes publicly, and although I had lost the relationship with my son forever, I knew I had made the right decision. Ethan had learned that justice, although slow, eventually arrives. And I had learned that it is never too late to reclaim your own life, no matter how many years you have lived in the shadows. This was my story of liberation. A story that I hope inspires other women to break their own chains, no matter who put them there.